What is up, guys? Today I want to take a look at 6 AD carries that can use Ghostblade to do more early but aren't that common at building it right now. Especially when used properly, I think this could help carry bad teammates. For some reason, I think this is actually probably one of the most popular questions I get asked at the moment. So yeah, I thought we'd go over it, and this isn't anything Korean. This is just from a lot of my testing and looking up a few high-elo players doing the same. So like this if you did, dislike it if you didn't, but leave a comment with what you think is the most underrated item right now. I'm really curious to see what you think, and you never know, you might turn up in one of my videos. Let's just go over why this can work first. Like, what's the point of even getting this over anything else? So stat wise, 60 AD, 10% cooldown reduction, 20 armor pen, and the active is 40% attack speed for 6 seconds, and that costs you 3,200 gold. So how AD carry damage actually works is like early it's kind of ability damage and later it's auto attacks. That's kind of when each are most important anyway. Ghostblade does both. That is why it's so good. Like, you have the AD cooldown reduction armor pen for the ability stuff, like they hurt more, you can use them more often. The AD and the armor pen as well make your autos hit harder, and the 40% attack speed means you use them more often for that 6 seconds of burst. It's important to remember as well that most fights early into the game are actually decided in the first 6 seconds. They aren't very long at all. Think of like an Infinity Edge, right? It's 10 more AD, but then 20% crit and crit damage. Though those two are useless really until we have a crit item, so we aren't going to be useful until 2 items. When we get those 2, we'll be doing a lot, but until then we kind of suck, and that's what we're going to fix. If we do forget about the crit for a second, Runa's and Infinity Edge gives us 40 attack speed and 70 AD. Ghostblade is 40% attack speed and 60 AD plus armor pen and cooldown reduction. Obviously we do have the 50% crit and the extra bolts, which is huge, but that is for 6,200 gold. Ghostblade is only 3,200. If we don't crit, okay, think if we get unlucky, Ghostblade in those 6 seconds will be more damage actually. We get like 1.5 items worth of stats, 3,000 gold cheaper. The reason this is so good, even worth making a video about in the first place, is because if you have a terrible team, if you need to get ahead earlier and do more to carry, then Ghostblade is actually just going to give you more damage and let you do more. Later into the game, it will slow you down a little bit, so there is a downside, but if you feel like you're useless and you can't do anything sometimes, well, this is kind of going to help with that. I'm not saying you should do this in every single game at all, okay? I'm definitely not saying that, but it is an option, and at least after this video, you'll understand when and why you would do it. Mainly like earlier damage, better at lower ranks, I think, to stay safe and be effective with less items. We're not going to be looking at the obvious ones here, so no Misfortune, no Twitch, Lucian, Jhin, Draven, like we already know about them. We want some lesser known ones. The first one is Jinx. I've been doing this a lot and I personally love it. Jinx is very good with crit, right? Her rockets can crit. Getting a Runes means those rockets fire off on multiple people, but her lane phase kind of sucks. The problem I have always had with her is that I kind of feel like I just had to sit back and not do very much, farm it out and wait for items before really starting to go nuts. You could kind of fight, I guess, but not exactly the best. You're more support reliant, I guess, which isn't the best idea in ranked. We already have attack speed from a minigun. Ghostblade makes that autos hit harder there. Rockets hurt more with AD and armor pen, plus we get the 6 seconds of attack speed to duel people. Honestly, it's very surprising how much damage your rockets will do with this. Like, your zap does more, even your ult will do more, and finally you kind of feel like you can have a bigger impact earlier into the game. I think Jinx has a lot of very high natural damage with her rockets anyway, but the problem is kind of getting to a point where they really do hurt. This is kind of a way to help that. If your team is doing well or very passive in the game anyway, I kind of wouldn't bother. Crit build is still very effective, but if your team is feeding and you need to carry, it means you can do more in those early fights before it's too late. It's also actually nice to have a bit more mobility. It's something I haven't really mentioned very much, but move speed on Jinx is really good. She has no escapes and it can make kiting a ton easier in team fights. This next one might actually be the most legit build for Tristana. For the others on here, they're all kind of like optional builds, I guess, but for Trist, this might actually be the best she has right now. Tristana is a solid champion anyway, but her build paths kind of suck. Actually, no, they really suck right now. And basically, like, suffers the same problems as Caitlyn, except Kate has more ability damage to get through mid-game. Basically, unless Tristana gets really fed right now, she takes too long to get to the Infinity Edge and crit item power spike and doesn't really do very much. Ghostblade is one way to fix this. You have a much better lane phase. AD armor pen will help her do more. Plus, we have the attack speed steroid to use it more with her Q, and that's definitely a really good synergy. Her Q lasts 5 seconds, right? Ghostblade lasts 6. So for the 5 seconds, you actually have 150 bonus attack speed with both together at rank 5. At rank 1, it's still 70%. Having that much of a boost is insane for both lane fights and team fights. It gives her a bigger chance to get fed early and a harder nuke at the start to get through a big tank or a diver. It's kind of weird though, because normally Ghostblade only brings enough value to justify it when you can buff your abilities with the AD and arm pen as well as autos. With Tristana, her W jump and her ult are both magic. Her explosive charge is physical and does a good chunk, but normally one ability is not going to be enough. I guess the difference really between her and others is we have this attack speed steroid to make up for it a little bit. The charge is 110% bonus AD, which is a high ratio with Ghostblade. Plus, actually, the other options just honestly abilities suck. Rageblade is very expensive and the ramp takes too long, really not amazing special synergy at all, and Infinity Edge is the same problem still. Mid game is rubbish, so like what other choice do you really have? In my opinion, I think this is good anyway, it works, but everything else just feels so bad, and unless you get like super fed in lane, you're relying on your team to carry you until like 2 or 3 items where you can actually do something. So Ezra is a bit different from the rest of these. He's not an auto-attacking champion really, he's like a kite and poke champion, right? The thing is, Ezra has a pretty big ramp up time with blue build, like with the tier and stuff, and that build doesn't take advantage of the new Triforce that much, but this actually does. This is a different playstyle to blue build, okay? Let me just point that out. This is about hard carrying a game through damage, not through kiting. The big things with Ghostblade are going to be the AD, armor pen, and cooldown reduction. They'll make your Q hit a ton harder, and also gives you more kill potential anyway, like much better in the lane phase with this. People massively underestimate how strong Ezreal is in lane anyway, and this just makes it even more punishing, to be honest. But after that, we can get a Triforce. Even more cooldown reduction, we're now at 30%. AD, the speed up from the phage, the sheen damage, and attack speed as well. It fits a lot more with this build now that the crit is removed and we have cooldown reduction instead, and actually it's like a massive 2-item power spike, probably the most damage you can output with any 2 items I think on Ezreal. So there are a couple of things, like it's going to give you a better lane, more damage, armor pen and AD, but also more sheen damage. Remember, the fist is 100%, or the Iceborne Gauntlet, whatever. The sheen is 200% base AD. That makes a big difference. This is much more about diving in and getting work done quickly rather than doing damage over a longer period of time. You do lose the kite and it costs more. It is a bit more risky in that sense, but it depends on your playstyle. If you'd rather be this solo carry damage monster, then this build works really well. I'd personally say this is probably for more advanced Ezreal players who are used to the champion a bit. It's a bit of a different playstyle, but it can carry really hard. So Caitlyn is next up, very similar to Jinx actually, like the same reason why you do it in the first place. Caitlyn is good in lane, but has this dip while she's getting her items, basically while she works towards the Infinity Edge and Runa's combo. This one I've actually tested before, but like always decided it kind of wasn't worth it. Like it wasn't a big enough difference to justify delaying your crit power spike. Now we have our W though, now we're going to max that. We do have a reason for this armor pen and AD, and I think actually in certain games now this can let us do a little bit more. The traps have an insane AD ratio and base damage, so do our headshots, so the AD and armor pen are making these hit like a truck, even more than normal. And normal headshots will do a lot more with this, our Q, our ultimate as well. It basically buffs our abilities so they do more, which covers up our mid game dip a little bit. I think it can actually help you dominate the lane phase a bit better. It's kind of weird, but for Caitlyn, as you go towards like mid game, you get weaker in comparison to the enemy AD normally. Like they spike after 1 item, you dip until 2. It's going to massively help you in early fights or against divers. You can kite easier, you can do more damage to them, and it's kind of the same thing with Jinx. We're trying to get an advantage early with this. Do more that will speed up our gold total towards getting 3 items where we are a monster. Again, if you're doing well and so is your team, I think you can get away with the dip and it's just worth power farming towards 2 or 3 items like normal. The problem for Caitlyn players though is if they have an average lane phase just okay, they farm but do nothing special, and then their team is behind as well, it's like a recipe for disaster, honestly. You have to just hope you can stall out the game long enough to get items to carry. So the next up is Sivir. The funny thing is she was almost the Korean Lucian. Like when they were testing these new items in Korea, Sivir was the first one to do it properly, but then Lucian came along, did it better, and kind of stole the spotlight. Sivir has a bigger price to pay than most, I think. Like she relies so heavily on crit for teamfight damage with a ricochet, like that is where a lot of her damage comes from. Even though we can still get the crit after, it's definitely going to delay it a little bit, but we do get a lot out of it. So Sivir is kind of like bad in lane, let's be honest. We pick her for a mid game and a team fight where she just crits everyone to death. That is nice and everything, but that doesn't really help if our team is getting boned or we want to be a bit more aggressive. But the AD, armor pen, and cooldown reduction from Ghostblade makes her Q and W hurt an absolute ton, especially her Q. With the burst you have from abilities now, plus a Ghostblade active, you can definitely kill people in those 6 seconds. It's also kind of actually funny. Most people think she's weaker early and will take the fight, only to realize you have a Ghostblade and they've just screwed themselves. The biggest thing definitely will be the damage you're packing into your abilities. It's going to make a big difference, but you actually have a couple of options for builds. You can get like Infinity Edge and attack speed, or even a Black Cleaver. Applying those stacks over everybody in a team fight is really strong. The reason it's not used very much right now is because it doesn't fit into a crit build very well, but it can fit into here and be super effective. The problem is going to be if you do this, you lose a bit of mana. It basically replaces the Essence Reaver, so you do more damage early and stand more of a chance in a fight. But in my opinion, this kind of is best used to get really fed in lane, or if your team is doing really badly. Other than that, just don't do it and get a normal build. The last one is Ashe, and I deliberately left her until the end because she's already super good now with the normal build, like the Essence Reaver crit build, but Ghostblade does a lot for her as well. The AD, the armor pen, the cooldown reduction will all be increasing her volley and ranger's focus damage. Her Q will absolutely wreck, by the way, if you ever build this. The AD percentage on her Q is 135%, the volley is 100%. Like, by the way, the higher the AD ratio, the better AD is on the champion, and also so the more useful Armor Pen is in general for making it hurt more. Her Ranger's Focus is probably the big one, honestly, because it lasts for 5 seconds, has increased attack speed, and is kind of like a mini Ghostblade. Ghostblade is 6 seconds, gives attack speed, so it's like double normal plus doing all of this bonus damage. This is really good for dueling people. In a 1v1, you'll be doing a lot more damage than normal, like from an Essence Reaver or an Infinity Edge, but in a straight up team fight, you'll probably do less overall, especially after the 6 seconds. This is partly why I left her until last. She's very good with it, but she has a high price to pay, even higher than Sivir. Crit works so well with her kit and her passive that you really do want to get a lot of it. It definitely works, but it's higher risk than the others. You stand to lose a bit more, I think, if you don't get ahead using it. So yeah, maybe early, but keep it in the back of your mind as a late game option if they aren't building very much armor. So that wraps up this video. Let me know what you think. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. But for now, let's go to the robots.